All right, the Biden administration is turning to China to help fix our inflation crisis. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spent July 4th talking economic issues with her Chinese counterpart. And the White House reportedly weighs rolling back Chinese tariffs put there by Donald Trump. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton sits on the Senate Joint Economic Committee. He joins us now to react. Senator, evidently the Biden administration split on doing this. Yellen and Raimondo want him taken out. Jake Sullivan and their trade secretary don't. Where do you stand?
Well, Brian, this is just another example of Joe Biden blaming inflation on anyone but himself. We've had these tariffs in place for 3 or even 4 years, and we didn't have inflation when it started. Similarly, he keeps blaming Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine for inflation, but we had inflation well before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. The problem here is Joe Biden's policies, and especially his energy policy, because the price of gasoline and electricity drives the cost of everything else. Whether you buy it at a grocery store or Walmart or anywhere else, it took energy to make it, took gas to drive it there, and it takes energy and electricity to keep it there. So if we would unlock the American oil and gas and coal sector and allow them to produce the energy we need, that would bring down the prices of everything. But what does Joe Biden do? He'd rather go to Iran and Venezuela and beg them to produce more than go to North Dakota or Texas. Joe Biden needs to look in the mirror at the White House if he wants to find the problem and perhaps the solution for inflation.
Senator, what's amazing is it's ABCs are making deals. Why would you just give something up? If you're going to give up tariffs, politically and practically, you don't just give something up for no reason to get nothing back in return except for angering the American business and labor unions. They don't want the tariffs lifted.
Yeah, and Brian, this is the theory of the tariffs in the Trump administration, is that China had been cheating and stealing and taking our jobs and our factories for decades because they were using unfair trade practices. And that with tariffs, you'd get some leverage over them and demand that they make a change. And apparently, the Biden administration, because of their own foolish policies, are now, as you say, about to give all that leverage away for it looks like nothing in return for the American worker.
Senator, I have to tell you, if you look at China, they are right in our backyard in Central and South America. They are actually harnessing the natural resources of the evidently green technology, this green wave that's going to be hitting us. They have all the rare earth. They're in our backyard. Why don't we seem alarmed by this?
Well, for decades, Brian, Joe Biden has celebrated the rise of China. Just a couple years ago on the campaign trail, he said they weren't a competition for us, that they weren't bad folks, just like he toasted Xi Jinping whenever he was a leader of the Obama administration's policies on China. For decades, he has not seen China as a threat. And now, as you point out, China is leading the world in producing so-called green technology, solar panels made with slave labor, because of their unfair trade practices. And Joe Biden and the Democrats want to accelerate our dependence on Chinese sources of energy. By contrast, we're the world's largest producer of fossil fuels, and China is a net importer of them. So they want to give away yet another point of key leverage in our competition with China. But it gets back to the foolish way that Joe Biden views China. He doesn't view them as a competitor for us, not our main threat.
Senator, a lot of people viewing you as a presidential contender, trips to Iowa on your agenda. How should we view you, as a senator from Arkansas and a future presidential candidate, or just a senator from Arkansas?
Well, I'm working very hard for the people of Arkansas in Washington. I'm also working very hard for all of my colleagues like Chuck Grassley or great candidates like Zach Nunn in Iowa, so we can win back the House and the Senate this year. That's really where our focus should be. If we can win back the Congress this year, then we can take steps to help bring down inflation, to help increase the flow of American oil and gas, so America's families are not suffering from this terrible inflation anymore.
And you had your 2 children sit down and hear the whole Declaration of Independence read out loud on July 4th. For that, you deserve a medal. Senator, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, go get him.